Good day there everyone, and a warm welcome to my channel called Vintage Time. My name is Cliff, I'm a gem cutter from Australia, and welcome to part 2 of Gem Cutting for Dummies, which will be about basic machine maintenance. Now, as I mentioned in my first video, Gem Cutting for Dummies part 1, this series would take place over a very long time, delving with all aspects from the machine to cutting a gemstone. And the application of these videos really will apply more to those people who are beginners or trying to learn how to cut gems. Also, this series will be about economic reality, not fantasy. It's all targeted at people like myself who want to learn how to cut gems for a hobby, for fun. And even though you may be cutting some gems that you will sell, and I have, but really at the end of the day you're not going to be cutting a $5,000 piece of tanzanite. So we'll be looking at all the aspects of a hobby that should be affordable and something you should be able to learn. Now let's get started. Assuming that you have a faceting machine, it doesn't matter how much it costs, what country it's made in, what type of model it is, all faceting machines need to be serviced, and they have to be serviced regularly. And I usually find the best time to service or maintain your machine is after you've cut a gem. And here you can see all this contamination from diamond grit, and things aren't looking as clean as it should be from my last faceting project. So let's start with the whole process of the things you will need and what you may need to do to service your machine. So let's look at all the products you'll need to clean your machine with. All of these mostly can be found around the household and are very cheap. I like to use napkins as opposed to tissue paper. It's a lot more resilient and it doesn't break down. Also, you'll need some paper toweling for mopping up and general cleaning. You'll need cotton earbuds. Now they call these Q-tips in the USA. In Australia we call these earbuds. Also, you'll need some liquid paraffin, which you can buy from most chemists. Use this as a lubricant. Do not use WD-40 or sewing machine oil. You'll need some methylated spirits or denatured alcohol. I use this in a sprayer bottle. Also, a microfiber cloth. This one's damp, and you'll need a microfiber polishing cloth. You'll need some tools. I only need a screwdriver for my machine, and some machines may need a few washers and seals. So to start off with, we're going to use a clean microfiber cloth to wipe the surface areas of the machine. Now, contamination is the worst enemy of a gem cutter. A little bit of diamond grit can get onto the surface of a gem when you're polishing and you just scratch the entire facet. So you need to have clean habits even while you're faceting. But before you even facet, it's good to have a clean machine, and this will save a lot of heartache before you cut that gem. So make sure you're folding the cloth over so you've got a clean part of the cloth whilst cleaning the surface of your machine and getting rid of all those contaminants. Get behind the back of the machine, give that a bit of a clean. If there's any contamination behind there, you'll be getting rid of that also. Also, whilst cleaning the machine, make sure you wipe down the surface area of your faceting bench or table. This is very important also. So it's really important to clean the debris out of your tray. A lot of people don't do this. They just leave all the debris from gems they cut sitting in the base of their tray for months. I actually like to clean out my tray when I do the pre-polish, and particularly the final polish. You don't want debris of a stone or diamond grit which ends up in that tray getting onto the surface of a gem you're about to pre-polish or polish. It can really mess things up. And the less debris you have floating around in your tray or around your machine, it's not going to get into any of the parts of your machine either. This really has to be done often, even when you're faceting, and more so after you've completed cutting a gem. Whilst you're cleaning the machine, make sure you clean any switches. My machine only has one switch on it, but you've got to remember that when you're faceting, you've got diamond grit or diamond paste on a finger while you're applying it to a polishing disc, and you may be transferring paste or diamond grit onto that switch, and over time it will build up and you will get contamination. So little things like this do matter. So next step is to get a paper towel to wipe down any residual moisture from the microfiber cloth, and once again it'll help clean anything that you've missed. Now the next step is to clean the fastening head assembly. Now you may need to look up your instructions depending on what type of head assembly you have and how you can take it apart, but this is what I do. Remove the fastening head assembly. Now most people will have a Mast machine, but you simply just slide that off. I'm just going to place it onto a tea towel. So the first thing I'm going to do is disassemble the quill, because I want to clean the inside of the quill and I want to clean the shaft that it rotates on. So there will be times you will need to clean the quill and the shaft of the fastening head assembly. The quill will rotate on the shaft, and of course with anything you've got metal touching metal, there's going to be a bit of wear and tear. It's going to need lubrication and it's going to need cleaning, so this is really important. So this is where the napkin paper is really good. You can sort of screw it up and bunch it up and force it into the quill. It won't tear apart, but it will pick up any dirt, as you can see. Now the tissue paper is not good for this, it just sort of tears apart. You can't sort of screw it up and poke it in. Now don't go poking into the quill with a screwdriver or anything metal. Just use something soft like the napkin paper to clean it out. Take your time, you know, and the dirt will come out. You know, you'll find that'll be quite a bit in there each time you cut a gem. So this is worth doing. You don't need to do it every time you cut a gem, but I would do at least 3 or 4 times a year if you're cutting quite regularly. So depending on the length or the shape or the type of quill you have, you may need to still get into it with a cotton earbud or a Q-tip to clean out any remaining debris. And as you can see, there's still a little bit more dirt in there to be cleaned out. So the next step is to clean the shaft on the fastening head assembly. Once again, use a clean napkin and just clean that shaft, removing any contaminants or debris. Now is a good time to check out any spacers or washers. They might need a clean. Sometimes they need to be replaced because they do get compressed. So now is a good time to check all that out. So most machines have a cheater assembly built into the fastening head. Now this cheater is usually exposed to the elements, meaning that it's not sealed. So what you need to do is clean this out, because water can splash into it, debris get into it, dust gets into it. And depending whether it's spring loaded or it's just a screw that moves the mechanism side to side, you will need to clean it, and if you don't, it will eventually seize up. Now depending on how often you want to clean it is up to you. You'll soon know when the cheater assembly is not moving as freely as it should, and that will tell you, well, maybe it's time you got to clean it. Now I use a cotton bud with methylated spirits, or you call those a Q-tip or denatured alcohol in the US. But just go in gently and just check out the winder of the cheater, make sure everything is moving freely, and just give anything else around the cheater a bit of a clean. Now, don't over lubricate the cheater with any type of oil. Recently a friend of mine bought an Ultratech V2 and the entire cheater area and the head assembly was just sprayed down with oil, and it literally oozes out oil each time he's faceting. It just milks out oil. It's just incredible. Now we've got to probably spend 3 or 4 hours cleaning this machine, so go light on the lubricants, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. Now it's time to lubricate some of the components on the machine, and for lubrication I like to use the liquid paraffin oil, and for a couple of reasons I like it. It's odorless, it's non-toxic, but more importantly it's quite viscous and it holds its viscosity, unlike WD-40 or sewing machine oil. So now it's time to lubricate the shaft on the fastening head. Now go lightly with the lubrication, just a little dab, and just apply it on with the cotton bud, as you can see. And if you use a little, it won't leach out of the quill assembly. You don't need a lot for it to spin freely, as you can see. So the next step is to attach the quill back onto the shaft, depending on how this clips in or screws on. But if it screws on, do not over tighten these screws. It will wreck the grommets within the assembly of the quill. Just go easy, tighten slowly, check and rotate occasionally to see how it's spinning. And if you do this, all should be well. Clean the lock-in screw assembly that holds the fastening head onto the mast. I haven't done mine for a while, so I'm just going to lightly oil that. That's important. And then screw it back into the head assembly. So it's time for me to clean the height adjuster. Mine will just slide off, as you can see, and keep it upright, because if you tip it upside down, the ball bearing enclosure will fall off. So the bearings are nice and clean, as you can see. I don't need to clean those, so I'll just leave that as it is. That was recently done not too long ago, but I do need to clean the inside of the height adjuster. So if you want to have a machine that's functioning for years and operating beautifully, I highly suggest every time you cut a gem after completion and you restart before you cut another gem, that you clean both the height adjuster and the mast assembly. You have metal touching on metal, and if you clean this every time, you'll have a machine that will run perfectly for years. So it's time to clean the mast, and once again I'm just a little dab of paraffin oil onto a napkin. I'm just going to wipe this mast up and down and just get whatever debris is located on the surface of that mast, and you'll find that quite often it's always going to be dirty like this. You can just see on the white napkin how much has come off. So now that the mast has been cleaned, we do want to lubricate it, and there's a few reasons why we want to keep it lubricated. You've got less friction with the height adjuster rubbing up and down on it, and also it's not likely to ever rust. Now I'm not going to use this machine for a little while, so I'm going to keep that mast lubricated, and it should remain as shiny as it is for another year until I decide I want to use it. Now just dab on that lubricant. You don't want it drizzling and running down the mast. Just a little bit will be enough. Then you'll need to slide down the height adjuster. And then last but not least, of course, you will put on the faceting head. And you can see that everything's running nice and smooth. Time to clean the main shaft within the pan, and this is what drives the entire disc around the cut on. This is something I don't lubricate. I just give it a bit of a clean up, and then I'll clean the inside of the spindle. Now one component that gem cutters fail to clean, only because they forget about it, is the water vessel, and particularly the knob on the vessel that controls the flow of the water. Once again, we're talking about cross-contamination of particles, particularly diamond grits, and we're talking about the heavier grits such as 8000 mediums or the 3000 grits. You really don't want to have these contaminants on any switches or any knobs on your machine. Regular cleaning will prevent any of that contamination getting onto the gem you're cutting, particularly during the pre-polish and that final polish stage. So make sure that little things like this are done from time to time. Now, last step in the process of cleaning, and this is something you don't need to do. I do it about twice a year. I like to polish my master lap. Now it depends on the type of master lap you do have, but I simply just use a microfiber cloth and some Brasso. And once again, you do get contaminants on your master lap. So now the master lap has been nicely cleaned and polished and looking almost brand new again. Now, part of the maintenance routine, and this will happen to any gem cutter, is that eventually your belts will either snap for some reason or they end up getting perished, like you can see with my original belt, which is no good. If you cannot get a replacement belt from your outlet that you bought your fastening machine from, you will need to improvise and make your own belts. Now you need to go to an outlet that specializes in belts and pulleys. Bring in your old belt and they'll be able to sell you a length, usually by the meter, and you'll have to make up the belt yourself. Now as you can see here, this is my old belt that I had to join up together, and then I got another replacement belt where they fused it together. So to join the belts together you need to buy special little joining grommets. As you can see here, they're about 50 cents each, made out of aluminium. Then you'll have to dip both ends of the belt into boiling hot water to make the rubber pliable to push in that grommet, and it's just a case of pushing in hard to join that belt. And then once you've done that, you'll have to get underneath your fastening machine and attach it to your pulleys. So we're getting closer to the end of another video within the series, Gem Cutting for Dummies. Hopefully those people who are interested in wanting to learn how to cut gemstones have learned something about how to maintain their fastening machine. So until next time everybody, take care of yourselves, and it's bye for now.